Frank's consciousness returned abruptly, jolted awake by a violent expulsion of air from his lungs. His body was suddenly besieged by an overwhelming force, as though he were plummeting from the heavens. His hands remained bound behind his back, the rough burlap sack still covering his head, intensifying his terror as he grappled with the unknown. In those eternal seconds that stretched out before him, he experienced a dizzying weightlessness that came to an abrupt halt with a spine-jarring impact, sending him sprawling backwards. Amidst the chaos, smoke enveloped him, suffocating his breath. The burlap sack over his head began to smolder, the heat seeping through like molten lava, melting the coarse fabric and igniting it. Panic surged through him as he rolled frantically on the ground, rubbing his head against the gritty earth to extinguish the flames. The pain of burns mingled with the lingering ache of previous wounds, yet through sheer determination, he managed to quell the fire, leaving the bag in tatters around his neck. Breathing heavily, Frank's gaze darted around in disbelief. Before him lay a scene of devastation. A blazing, mangled cargo truck that seemed to have struck a landmine on the road they had been traveling. It dawned on him that this truck had been his transport, now a fiery tomb for its occupants. Bodies burned amidst the wreckage, some flung into the surrounding trees, their limbs grotesquely caught in the branches. Despite his hands still being bound, Frank staggered towards the inferno, scraping his restraints against twisted, burning metal until they finally gave way, freeing him. Surveying the carnage, he reflected grimly on his narrow escape from the explosion that had claimed the lives of the others. Removing the charred remnants of the bag from his neck, he scavenged among the bodies, salvaging whatever supplies he could find before they were consumed by fire. An assault rifle caught his eye, and he secured it along with an ammunition pouch from one of the fallen men. Circling the wrecked truck, he discovered the driver's side torn open, its engine exposed like spilled guts across the road. Moving to the passenger side, he opened the door to a grim but oddly satisfying sight. A torn body with a familiar face. Frozen in a futile gesture of help, a wrist protruded, adorned with Frank's prized watch glinting amidst the flames. Swiftly reclaiming the watch and placing it back on his own wrist, Frank continued his search among the deceased, scanning each face for the officer in order to retrieve the crucial map that could alter the course of the war. Frank reached into the blazing truck, seizing a radio handset connected to the burning dashboard. He keyed it twice, a signal lost amidst the fire as it consumed the cab. Stepping back, heat searing his face, he braced himself as a distant hum heralded the arrival of another truck. Aware he lacked the strength for flight, Frank opted to lie low beside the burning wreckage, amidst the fallen, donning a dead soldier's helmet and assuming a stillness that mimicked death itself. Rifle poised and ready, he waited as the approaching truck's engine roared closer, the ground trembling beneath him upon its arrival. Remaining motionless, he watched as 5 soldiers disembarked, weapons raised and scanning for any signs of life. Gradually, the soldiers cautiously advanced towards the blazing wreckage, each step deliberate and wary. Frank lay still, observing their approach with heightened senses, knowing his moment to act was imminent. One soldier, mesmerized by the glint of Frank's prized watch amid the chaos, cautiously crept forward toward where Frank lay prone on the scorched earth. His comrades, moving with deliberate steps, followed close behind, their senses finely attuned to any potential threat lurking among the wreckage and swirling smoke. The soldier's hand extended tentatively, drawn inexorably towards the watch, convinced of Frank's incapacitation. In a sudden eruption of primal instinct, Frank sprang into action with lightning speed. The air reverberated with the thunderous crack of gunfire as his weapon unleashed a furious storm of bullets. The soldier's chest erupted in a torrent of blood and shattered bone. His body dropped to the ground as if struck by a merciless force of nature. Frank grabbed onto the soldier's lifeless corpse, using him as a macabre sandbag in the tumultuous frenzy that unfolded. Amidst the chaos, Frank's rifle became an instrument of death, each bullet tearing through flesh and armor with devastating precision. The forest echoed with the relentless percussion of gunfire, mingled with the agonized cries of the wounded and the explosive splintering of trees torn apart by the force of impact. As the ambush intensified into a crescendo of violence, Frank seized every opportunity with ruthless efficiency. He shifted his aim seamlessly from one soldier to the next, their bodies jolting and convulsing under the unrelenting barrage of bullets. Tracers of light streaked through the haze of smoke, illuminating the scene with flashes of deadly intent. The soldiers, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, faltered in their attempts to retaliate, overwhelmed by the ferocity of Frank's assault. As one of the soldiers fell to the ground, his weapon fired wildly in all directions, sending multiple rounds into the ground around Frank, stitching across his human shield, covering it in smoking holes that gushed crimson seas onto the forest floor. Once the last soldier fell to the violent onslaught, Frank hurled the bullet-ridden body off him, rising to his feet with a primal roar of defiance. Adrenaline surged through his veins, heightening his senses and sharpening his focus amidst the chaotic tumult. With a steely gaze, he surveyed the aftermath of his lethal ambush. The forest seemed to hold its breath, shrouded in the acrid stench of smoke and the lingering echoes of violence that hung heavy in the air. Spotting one soldier attempting to crawl away in a desperate bid for survival, Frank's fury burned brighter. He unleashed a relentless torrent of bullets, each shot finding its mark with surgical precision. The soldier's body convulsed and then lay still, a stark testament to the unyielding determination that coursed through Frank's veins. As the echoes of gunfire gradually subsided, an eerie silence descended, broken only by the crackling of burning wreckage and the distant rustling of leaves stirred by the wind. Exhaustion and exhilaration mingled within Frank as he discarded his spent rifle with a mixture of frustration and catharsis. Kneeling amidst the wreckage and the fallen bodies, he found himself engulfed in a whirlwind of emotions and memories. The weight of his actions settled heavily upon him, a stark reminder of the harsh realities of survival amidst the unrelenting brutality of war. Frank's brief interlude of reflection shattered abruptly, torn asunder by the piercing cry that sliced through the air like a blade. The officer had returned, possibly bearing Frank's coveted map. Before Frank could fully process the unfolding chaos, projectiles began landing all around him. First beside him, then behind, followed by a rapid succession of concussive blasts that ripped through the air. The explosions disoriented him completely, blurring his vision and sending shockwaves through his skull, as if a relentless machine gun had taken residence in his brain. Stumbling amid the tumult, Frank tripped over the lifeless body that had shielded him moments earlier from the inferno, crashing painfully to the forest floor. He sprawled amidst the debris, hands instinctively reaching to clutch his throbbing head, desperately trying to regain his bearings. As the ringing in his ears subsided, the thunderous approach of footsteps surrounded him. Soldiers closed in from all sides, converging on Frank's prone form as he lay battered and disoriented. Emerging from the haze, the officer's imposing figure materialized before Frank. Just as clarity seemed within reach, another sack was forcefully thrust over Frank's head, plunging him into a disorienting darkness once more. Boots hammered down on him with ruthless intensity, driving his essence into the unforgiving earth. Overwhelmed and unable to resist, Frank endured the brutal assault, his world reduced to pain and confusion. Standing over Frank, the officer wielded a small syringe retrieved from his pocket. With chilling precision, it pierced Frank's neck, injecting an unknown substance that flooded his veins. Instantly, memories of fallen comrades, the sights and sounds of battles past, surged through Frank's mind, mingling with a bitter sense of defeat. The onslaught of emotions and images left him sprawled in silence amidst the officer and his men, subdued by the potent effects of the injection. Frank's mind descended into a relentless spiral of chaos. His body, now completely disabled, was free from the pains adopted throughout his mission. He couldn't tell what was happening around him, like he was stuck in the void of purgatory, caught between the land of the dead and the harsh realities of his existence. With images of fallen friends swarming all around him, Frank slipped deep into the shadow realm once again. completely exhausted and at the mercy of his captors but happy to spend time with some old faces.